so sick of this weekend. I don't even want to hear it.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to This Takes the Cake. I'm Dallas.
And I'm Sara.
And today we are in the middle of wedding season, and we're going to talk about... We are in the thick of it, guys. And we're going to talk about timelines because that is what keeps us whole and together.
And it's crucial. Like, that is our job as a wedding planner, is to create the timeline, communicate, do those things. So, I mean, really, I just want to, if other wedding planners are listening or you're an aspiring planner, you really need to listen to this. Because
I feel like our timelines are built different.
They are. They are.
They really are.
Blood, sweat, and tears in our timelines.
And I want to talk about, too, and we'll get into it later, about how you came up with our format as well.
Yeah.
Because it's just so specific to us. And even, how you came up with, okay, we need to have the date on all of these pages versus, I don't know. Mm-hmm. We'll get into it, but yeah.
Well, I guess it's kind of coincidental that today is 10/10. And that's
what's 10/10, Sara?
It's my anniversary.
What kind of anniversary?
Ex-anniversary. So if anyone doesn't know, I was married, and I got married on 10/10/10, and that's actually
kind of iconic.
I know, right? And that's kind of how these timelines came about.
Yeah.
When I got married, there really wasn't any wedding planners, and
it's just what was in the Martha Stewart book at the time.
Yeah.
Of this is the timeline you follow, or you know what I mean?
I don't even think Pinterest was a thing at that point.
Yeah.
It was magazines, and you would get books, and you would read, and I made my own timeline. I mean,
for yourself on your wedding day?
I did. I had a whole book.
I bet you did.
It was a lot more pages than
you did.
we did.
Were you a bridezilla?
No, I was not, actually.
No. You're organized.
Very organized.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, where do we want to start with timelines?
I think we should start with how we at S&B approach timelines and kind of the first step when we get a new client, say they're full planning, how we begin our timelines.
Yeah. All right. If you want to jump into that first.
Yeah. So right after our interviews and everything and we're hired on, we like to have another phone call prior and kind of just go through time of events. Sometimes it's just little things like, do you want to have a first look? That's going to kind of what's the word? That's going to
oversee for the day, give us a rough idea, of what time, if you've got 12 bridesmaids, what time you're starting hair and makeup, to
what time your photographer needs to get there if you really want to have getting ready shots.
Yep.
All of that.
Who is feeding you? Are you having, mimosas? You having brunch food?
Yeah, some people want to go to a brunch and then get ready. I mean, there's all different kinds of wedding day scenarios. So we like to get to know all of that. Once we have that, the very first thing we do is make a day of timeline. And this is one of the first things you get from us as an S&B bride.
And it's just a little one-pager, and it's not very detailed. It's just to give rough ideas. So when you're booking vendors, you're like, okay, I need the band from 7 to 11, or I need makeup from, oh, crap, we got to start at 8 o'clock.
We have to make sure we have 3 hairdressers, or when you're doing your makeup trials, I want to make sure I have 3 girls for hair and makeup, 4 girls for hair and makeup. So it kind of just sets the basis as we start hiring vendors.
Absolutely.
And I feel like this is something people don't know. A lot of times people might, and we see this with month of clients, we see this with just other people's weddings. They hire all their vendors, and then all of a sudden you get a timeline and you're like, oh, my band doesn't know to come at that time. I told them this time. Or I didn't know they took 3 hours to set up. I told them this time.
Or same for transportation. Oh, I didn't think I needed them at 2:30. I put, 30 minutes before the ceremony.
But how am I going to get to the ceremony?
All right. Yeah.
How's bride getting there?
And that's the thing too with wedding day. As long as you have a really good timeline and you've put in the thought and effort into logistics, most people don't know, if you're loading a transportation bus at a hotel, it could take 5 to 10 minutes to get everybody on the bus and then get out of the parking lot. So you got to allow for that time.
You do.
So.
And that's all in the timeline.
It is. It
needs to be.
So I do have some samples, just so that, because we were going to talk about what things people don't think to put in timelines.
Yeah.
And we're not going to give names or anything, but we've seen lots of timelines from other planners across the United States.
Even other vendors. We work with a lot of people who aren't used to having event planners or wedding planners at their events. So then we get a photographer timeline or a band timeline or whatever. So We see a lot.
And they don't even put the bride or groom's name or the date. And I'm like, well, this is cool, but where is it?
It's just another
Who
product.
are they? And how do I get in contact with them? I mean, I've seen some, like, the wedding planner, they don't even put their contact information.
Yeah, how am I supposed to? I
If I'm the
recently witnessed
photographer,
that. Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm the photographer, this is great. Oh, I need to call her because I'm going to tell her I'm running 10 minutes late.
Yeah.
I don't even have a way to look it up.
Or like if you need to, I was a bridesmaid recently and I didn't have, I mean, I'm not going to go and ask bride for the wedding planner's number, but we needed scissors, something stupid like
Yeah.
that. And I'm like, oh, I know that they should have scissors.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to get that? Like,
Exactly.
and I didn't know the number. It wasn't on the timeline. It wasn't on the BPA either. And we'll get
Right.
into those too.
Yeah, we'll talk about those too because I don't think a lot of people
Even know what a BPA
yeah,
is.
exactly. Yeah, so things that people don't think about in the timeline, obviously, is contact information.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's crucial. I guess we can go ahead and jump into that. So we do bridal party agendas. And so that's something we pass out at rehearsal to all the bridesmaids, groomsmen. And they have it prior to rehearsal, but we physically give them a copy.
Yeah. Those groomsmen aren't going to print it out from
Yeah,
their email.
they're not. But some of the times they're like, oh, I have it digital on my phone. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
But like on there is whoever's the lead for the wedding, their cell phone. And I think we put on there like, please text, because if they call, we probably not going to answer because we don't know who they are.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
You know, and on that agenda, it's a short version, but it tells the girls where to be, the boys where to be.
Tells them what time they're doing hair and makeup, what time they're leaving the house that they're getting ready at, what time you're doing photos, when you're done with photos. I mean, all of those small things that if you're in a bridal party and
those are the questions you're going to want to know.
Those are the questions you want to know.
What
When
time
can
do
I
you
go
need
to
to be
cocktail
here?
hour?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or when's this shindig over?
Yeah,
Because I'm
literally.
tired.
What time am I walking down the aisle with that guy I met yesterday?
Or I'll have the maid of honor or best man be super nervous, and they'll be like, what time's my toast? You
Yeah.
know, or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and as a very type A person, if I'm attending an event, I want to know what's happening, you know? So,
Me too. Especially if I'm in the event, because then I feel like
yeah, and you
I
were
need to
just,
know.
well, let's talk about that. So you were just a bridesmaid, maid of honor? Or matron
of honor,
sorry,
yeah.
matron of honor. And tell me what you experienced through that.
It was definitely very different being on the other side. I think this was my first wedding since I've become a wedding planner that I've been in. Attending weddings is a little different, but being in a wedding, you are seeing a little bit more of the behind the scenes. And I feel like there was a lot of just things that I noticed that maybe not everyone else noticed.
Right.
Timeline wise, I felt like we were kind of like floating, which for some people could be good. But for me, I'm like, okay, it's 12 o'clock. Like, shouldn't we be doing this? Or, okay,
Yeah.
it's 1
Jump
o'clock.
shot.
Where's the groomsmen? Because right now is first look and they don't need to be in the way. Like, where are, there's things that I was thinking about that I'm like, I'm trying so hard to not be an annoying bridesmaid. But it's
Right.
like, what's going on?
So we've all had those at weddings.
Yeah.
I've had a few annoying bridesmaids. I'm like, girl, I got you.
Yeah. Like,
Back her
I
down.
promise I'm going to send you down the aisle on the right key.
And like
Yeah.
sometimes, like, let's just say maid of honor, sometimes they can be a little like helicopter. Did you do this? Did you do this? And I'm like, did the bride not communicate that we've been working together for a year?
Yeah.
I've showed up for every phone call, every meeting. I'm here with my whole team. We got you, girl.
Especially a full or a partial planning client. We are with you from the beginning. And I have even like moms, dads, uncles. They're like, they didn't announce the cake cut. And I'm like, I know, because 6 months ago we decided they didn't want the cake cut announced.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I promise you it's on this here
Yeah.
clipboard. Like,
No,
it's
yeah.
okay. It's not your wedding, Uncle Jerry.
No, for sure.
Yeah. What are other things you notice that people miss on timelines?
I mean, the important details, the logistics. Or they'll just put stuff in there that really doesn't even
matter.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like on our end, like we can put in there like candles and things like that. But a client, they don't really need to technically.
Yeah. So when we
see
send
those
your
things.
BPA, you're not going to see our notes on the side saying, I don't know, let catering know 5 minutes till ceremony. I mean, I put things like that on my timeline so that if I'm not able to say it, one of my girls can make sure it's happening. Yeah.
And like in our full timeline, like we don't put like when the planner arrives and the catering arrives and the bartender arrives and the cake, because that just floods the timeline. We do a short little section that has all the vendors and arrival times. Because when you're busy day of, I don't have time to look at 19 pages of what we're doing.
No, it needs to
Day
be on
of.
the first page and I can look and say, oh, they're 30 minutes late. Let me give them a call.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
I think another thing that's missed a lot on timelines and just pretty common is that it's almost like a recipe that people save to their computer. Other planners may save to their computers and just insert
Yeah.
time and date. And then all of a sudden it's like there's no personality here. I don't
Yeah.
have dad's name. It just
Ours
says
are
father of
very
the bride. Like
customized.
very.
All the way down to like, we're gonna go get Ashley's shoes and change them. I don't know, whatever.
I mean,
it is.
like, yeah,
yeah, shoe
her
change,
second
dress
dress is
change.
hidden in this closet and we're gonna change it this time. Like it's very personalized and it takes everything from our brains onto the page. And I think that's really important because if you have an assistant on the weekend, this is just advice for other planners. If you have a team that you're working with that they haven't been on this event, I'm able to look at Sarah's timelines and know all of these things, even though like some people may think, well, I've talked about it, I know it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and if I was to get sick or you were to get sick and I need to step in, which has happened in the last 14 years, life is real, things happen, and we've had to step in. And I mean, having that detailed timeline and layout is very crucial, you know, for those things. I think the other biggest thing is on the front page or the second page of our timeline, we have all the vendors that you're working with.
Yes, their phone numbers, how many hours they're there, if it's your photographer or your band.
How many vendor meals they may need.
Yeah, we have the lead's first name. I mean, you might have the company's name, but that DJ might have 5 other DJs,
Exactly.
you know, and you need to know who the lead is. Yeah.
And I think the really crucial part of knowing who you're working with that day is for social media, tagging, doing those things. But also, let's maybe say the photographer needs to talk to the videographer. Sometimes they can, you know, they need to be working because they're different companies. They need to know how everybody works. If we're doing a first look, they don't want to get in each other's shot. So they may need a chat and talk about, hey, I really want to do this shot. Like, am I going to go in first or things like that? So if they can actually communicate, you know, maybe the band needs to talk to the venue for where they're going to park their bus and trailer, you know.
How they can load in and load out.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we can probably answer most of those questions, but you never know. They may say, want to call them and ask if they can leave their trailer overnight, you know, just some things that might be easier direct with the venue. And I think that's crucial.
Yeah. I know a lot of vendors also like to see who they're working with.
Yeah.
Like how, I
exciting.
mean, yeah, it is. You get to see how smooth the wedding's going to go if you have like a great team.
Got a team today.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
So, or, oh my gosh, I don't know any of these vendors.
Yeah.
Who are these people? You know, so you could look them up, check them out, all that good stuff. So
I have a fun one that I didn't know should be added to a timeline until I started here.
What was that?
Sunset time.
Yes.
We have it noted on multiple pages.
Yes.
And it's because sunset is obviously it's golden hour. It's the most important for photos. That might be in the middle of dinner, but we have it noted so that we can make sure that we help the photographer take them away.
Yes. Photographer loves us for that. And that's definitely one thing. When I start a timeline, I base it on the sunset. So we're like, I don't know what time to start the wedding. So we have a wedding coming up in December and sunset's at like 5:15. So they're not doing a first look. And I'm like, well, if you're not doing a first look, we got to do earlier, unless you want all your photos in the dark. So starting a ceremony at, let's just talk through it, 3 o'clock. That gives them 3 to 3:30 for the ceremony and 3:30 to 4:30, you know, prior to photos, you know, before it gets dark. And it could be a cloudier day. December's a tough one. So I always tell all of our clients, like, you can't get that sunlight back.
No.
You know, once it goes down, it's down.
It's gone, yeah.
And most of the pictures people print are the ones right after the ceremony. You know, the two of them were at the first look, so they're not printing the dark dancing shots in their house.
No.
I mean, did you print any of those?
No. They're all like from or from exactly what you said, like right at sunset or right with the after ceremony. No, I think it's very important, and it's also like I didn't know that was even something to add, but it makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's crucial too, because a lot of photographers do, if it's a pretty sunset, they like to take them out during that time. So on the timeline, if you're doing first dance, father-daughter, mother-son, and it's sunset time, that's not a good time to do it if they're going to do photos.
We need to wait a second, and then we'll come back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you should always look up sunset. And another thing for timeline, I learned this the hard way. It was one of my very first weddings, and I didn't know what the tide was. So living at the beach,
a beach wedding.
the tide's very important. We go out to the beach, And guess what? There's no freaking beach.
You got a dune.
The water is to the steps. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm talking, this was at rehearsal the day before, thank gosh. I was like, oh my gosh. I just played along with it. Wow, it must be King Tide or something out here. No idea.
It must be a full moon tonight or something.
What's happening? So if you're doing a beach wedding, always look up high tide, low tide, because that's crucial.
Yeah, that dictates everything.
And if you're setting up on the beach, let's just say the water is way out, but you're setting up 3 or 4 hours earlier, know that that water's coming
It's coming, and it will take away your arch and all your seats.
May or may not be speaking from experience. That happened at a proposal one time. Oh my
really?
gosh. We did a horse proposal, and they were, I don't know, riding the horses on the beach. And we had set up the proposal like pretty early because we had to basically dune buggy it out there to set everything up. And like they were running late, and the water kept getting closer and closer. And I'm talking like within feet. And you know how to like come up and then it'll go back down. So we had to move it twice.
Oh, really?
They kept running behind, and we couldn't. Yeah.
And if you know now, we put our proposals on like the very front of the beach. We don't go near the wet sand.
So sunset and tide is super important for all timelines.
That's so funny.
And all of these things go to say this is what makes a seamless wedding day for sure. I mean, things can happen obviously, but if you've done all your homework and research, definitely. They really help. So.
Yeah, and we definitely work with what you want as well. Some people want to get married, like ceremony at sunset. That's what we're going to suggest maybe doing. Your family shots beforehand, have them come over and do a first look and have all of those photos done, because once your ceremony's over and your sunset's down, I mean, it's time to party. You're getting flash shots for the rest of the night.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, for sure. I think this one's a good one. So what's the earliest hair and makeup time you've ever had to include on a timeline?
I have a good one.
Okay, go.
Okay, so Indian weddings are really big, and there's multiple.
I already knew you were going to go with that.
There's multiple events throughout the day for many days, and it's traditional to have a ceremony in the morning, and we had to have makeup starting at 5 a.m.
Insane.
5 a.m.
Insane.
For all the bridesmaids and the bride and
like
moms.
Whose
everyone.
eyes are even open, or like the puffiness? Well, I mean, other than me, other than me. But like, come on, who wants to get ready that early?
Not me.
And what bridesmaid wants to do that?
I'd be like, I'll do my own makeup, guys. I'll see you at like 7. I don't know.
Yeah.
What about you?
That was the one I was going to talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had like 6:37, but never.
Those are rough too.
Yeah, those are still rough.
Yeah, if you're getting married in the late fall, winter, just keep that in mind. If you have like 10 bridesmaids, you might want to hire on some more makeup artists.
Okay, so I want to tell a little trick about hair and makeup.
Do it.
So it's a little equation thing. I'm a numbers girl. So let's say there's 10 people getting hair and makeup. So you've got to put that in the timeline. So you need probably, I don't have my calculator, but probably at least 3 artists. But 10 people hair and makeup, that's really 20 services. So you should do 20 times 45. Here, I'll use my calculator.
This is a real math class.
Yeah.
You're getting an education today.
So if you're an event planner or want to be an event planner, you should do this math. So 20 services at 45 minutes. I don't care if the hair and makeup person tells you 30 minutes. There's no way.
No.
Time they get their brushes out, get everything going, and then you're like, oh, I don't like that eye. Can you redo that? Or that's too much blush.
Yeah, or like your eyes start watering when you put on fake lashes.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking from experience, it takes a minute.
Yeah, no, for sure. So that's 20 times 45. That's 900 minutes divided by 60. That means we need 15 hours.
Yes.
So I would say you probably want at least 3 stylists. That's 5 hours. Could probably even go 4.
Yeah.
And then we always kind of add an extra hour in there for hair and makeup for
touch-ups.
Yeah, maybe the diva bridesmaids,
Yeah, some people don't like their makeup at all, want it redone.
Yep, and you never want the bride to go last for hair and makeup in case you are not running behind, but it's getting close. I would do like next to last.
Yeah, I always do kind of towards the or ask them.
Yeah,
you don't want to go first. Hair and
first.
makeup artists are good about this too. Like they're towards the end, and usually we have bridesmaids and bride done, and then it goes into moms or something like that in case they need to be taken away for photos. I feel like that's
right.
The best way to go.
So how early do you tuck the bride and bridal party away? I think that's always a great question.
At least 30 minutes
Yeah.
before all your guests get there. And
sure.
that's because once your guests get there, they're excited for your wedding day. If they see you, they might feel entitled to come over and say hi, or be like, oh wait, I'm your third cousin, I should be in these photos. I didn't know about these. Or like, I mean, it could be anything. And also a lot of, I mean, I didn't want anyone to see me in my wedding dress beforehand. Like, I
for sure.
wanted it to be a surprise, a big reveal. I didn't want if I didn't want my husband to see it, I don't want my friends from college to see me or
And
whatever.
I've had brides freak out about it, you know, and I'm like, I'm so sorry they got here 45 minutes early.
You're like, you did all you could.
Yeah. And I always say, we try to do it on our timeline too. It just depends on the photographer. Do the pictures of the groom and groomsmen prior to the wedding. So if people are showing up, it's okay to see them, you know?
Yeah.
So
they're fine.
Yeah.
They're in their little suits.
Well, a lot of times they're like ushering the guests and things like that. So they're kind of around. So.
Yeah. That's a big thing too. If you aren't doing first look, we definitely suggest, and your photographer will too, doing all your bridal shots and your bridesmaids shots, and then groomsmen separately, so that when you do come together, it's like a little quicker, and then you can go into other things.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Let's see. Have you ever had a timeline that a client wanted that you knew would cause issues? Oh, yeah. All the time.
All the time. Remember when I was talking about how they wanted to get married at sunset?
Yeah. That happens a lot, but a lot of times we end up portraying them or convincing them, like, hey, this is what you need to do.
Yeah. And,
you know.
Yeah. Most of the time we can give our 2 cents, and they trust it because this is what we do.
Right. No, totally. I've had some weird timelines, but nothing that, like, didn't work logistically. It was just how the order they wanted to do things.
I've had that too.
Yeah, there was one not too long ago, which it was fine. They just literally wanted to party, so they wanted to be introduced and do like 20 minutes of like high volume, high energy dancing.
I remember that.
And then do dinner and special dances and stuff. So I mean, it's fine. I mean, just as long as it worked with the flow of catering and things like that.
Yeah. How about the wedding you did?
Oh my God.
The rehearsal order.
There was no timeline.
Well, that too, but like just rehearsal order wise, it was so different from like the traditional order. God. The groom came in from behind, right?
He did.
And then she walked in down the aisle with everyone
backwards.
else. Or she walked in from behind too.
Yep.
Yeah. That's interesting.
That I didn't even use that. Me, Caroline, Allison, Shelley, we just didn't even look at our timeline anymore. We just went to the bride and asked her what she wanted to do next.
And sometimes that's all you can do.
Because we were the help.
Literally.
She was a wedding planner. That's a red flag if you're getting married and a wedding planner hires you. Red flag for any potentials out there.
Yeah.
Just know it's going to be challenging.
Yeah.
The timeline, I spent hours on that thing, and it was a complete, literally, I was like marking, I was like, I'm just done looking at this.
Yeah.
First dance was, I remember, at like 7:15. We did it at 9:30. 9:30.
Right on schedule.
Yeah. Fireworks were on schedule because they were on a barge, and I had no way of communicating to them.
Like, later. They're like, now? Yeah. Everything blows up. That's hilarious. Okay, let's hop back into what we were talking about earlier. How did you formulate the timeline we have now?
Right.
How long did it take you to figure out what order it needs to go in, the pages? Because at first when I saw it, I was like, this is a lot. But now if I don't have a timeline like that, I'm like, I don't know how to function.
Right. And I feel like by the time I get to a wedding too, I pretty much know it. So I'm not looking at it that much. So back to, my wedding. I'm no longer married, just FYI. Just make that clear. So, I mean, it stemmed from that because I didn't have anybody to help guide me. So I was like, well, I need to put something together so my girls know where to be. The boys know where to be. The vendors, they don't know what's in my head. I need to tell them.
Yeah.
So obviously, and I don't know if you've ever seen an old one.
I think I have.
Yeah, they're pretty.
Because whenever I was an intern, I was the one that added the watercolor things to it.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I look at it now, it was pretty sad. But back then, I'll never forget, I met with Paula Player. She was one of the first vendors I met with. She was like, this is amazing. I've never seen anything like this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it came from like being from the bride standpoint and then thinking, because you always want to think about how the vendors are what they need to know.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, we've been to events, not like working it, like being it, and I wanted to know certain things, you
Yeah.
know? So,
Oh my God, going to an event with Sara McCall is like, like we'll be sitting, it's like a dinner, and she's like, well, I haven't had my water refilled. That's interesting. Or like, why did that come out right now? What's going on? You guys seeing that? I'm like, Sara.
yeah, no. Don't touch. I'm not allowed to touch anything or say anything. But I'm like, they could use some help.
yeah. It's just like, well, if we did it.
Right. Yeah, so the first page is just an overview of address, where things are going to be, and a short timeline. So maybe you're just, I don't know, doing the photo booth or something. And it's an overview. You can see what time the ceremony is, so you kind of know like an overview for the day. The second page is all of the vendors. We call them creative partners that are working the day. So their contact information, vendor arrival time. So over there, a lot of times, I mean, we'll kind of come up with, I mean, if the photographer's there 1:30 to 8:30, we'll, you know, say they're arriving at 1:30 or whatever. We have important addresses, so where the girls are going to be, where the guys are going to be, where the ceremony is, where the reception is, because things can be in different places.
We have emergency contact, rehearsal. There's a good amount on that page.
Yeah, rehearsal time. And even though we're maybe not involved with the rehearsal dinner, we'll still put the time and where it's going to be.
We like to get you there on time.
Exactly. And then obviously the client's name, the date, all the logistics. And then we start with the timeline of the day of. So we'll have a timeline for, hair and makeup all the way to the ceremony. Then we'll have a reception timeline. And these are one-pagers. They're not 9 pages. I mean, I don't have time. You know, once we get through the ceremony, I can go to the reception page, and then I'm going through that. We do have a notes page that's probably more for us of like
just like
simple things. Cake flavors. Do they
have a flower girl basket? Do they have I don't know.
There's so many things
there's so
on there.
many. Yeah.
Like,
and we always add to it
yeah,
too.
for sure. Are we putting menus down?
Yeah.
Do they have place cards? Do they have table numbers? All these little things. And that's good for the photographer to see that. So for details. And if you have a really, really awesome wedding, we'll even make a separate page, not to go with the timeline, just send the photographer of all the detail shots we want.
Yes.
If it's a very heavy, detailed wedding.
We love detail shots.
Yes, yes. May or may not love photographers that love detail shots.
Just a little shout out.
Yeah. And then we have a rehearsal order. So that page is just for the ceremony only. So how to line up mom, dad, grandparents, how are we walking the girls in, the guys in, what songs they're coming into. And I feel like you can put that page on the front of your clipboard, whatever you're working in that moment, and you're not like having to flip through all these things.
Songs is a big one. I feel like aren't on timelines, on other people's timelines.
No,
but it is so important, because even though you've had tons of conversations with your, I don't know, your strings or your band or your DJ, there can always be a mistake. And if they don't catch it right away, we can catch it of like, that's not the Black Eyed Peas. That's not, that's not the song she's supposed to walk down the aisle to. That's not Canon in D or whatever it is. And then we can change it really quick, or just make sure that it's on time. Oh, I hear that song playing. We're not ready for bride to come out yet. Keep it going. Like,
exactly.
I feel like that's not on a lot of people's timelines.
No, it's
having
not.
the songs.
Like this one, I'm just looking at one, just like it has, it just has introduced bridal party. Well, how are we lining them up? Do we know
what are their
that
names?
Ashley and Chad are going together? You know, you need that list so that maybe the band already has their order, the DJ, you guys can just make sure everything's.
Yeah.
And it's a way, if they have theirs, you have yours, it's a way to make sure that nothing is miscommunicated.
That's when all of that vendor communication we talked about, we always talk about, comes into play. I feel like people don't really understand exactly how much we're communicating, but it's down to small things like that. You might have a meeting with your band that we weren't in attendance to. So when we talk to your band, they're like, well, this is the order they told me. So then we can talk about that and make sure ours matches theirs, and it also matches what bride and groom want.
Well, I have another pet peeve.
Tell me.
I'm looking at this. Don't tell me dinner is being served at 6:23. Like, come on. Just in increments of 5.
Please.
The timeline is for guidance. So if you have a very type A bride and dinner is not served at 6:23, you are going to probably get yelled at.
Yeah.
For sure.
For sure.
And we tell all of our clients, this is just a guide, you know, we may introduce you at 6:15, but it may be really 6:20 because you had to use the bathroom and change your shoes,
Yeah.
you know, like that's the, you know, obviously.
Especially post ceremony, it's all just, you know, we want to make sure you have your photos, and that might put us 3 minutes behind, and then, or quote unquote behind. You're not actually behind. Everything that needs to happen is going to happen, and we'll make sure of it.
This has some, like, it just isn't even, like, detailed.
Wait, can you show me?
Yeah, I'll give you some examples.
Oh my God, I'm overwhelmed looking at it.
Yeah. They're not even, just mind blown. Because everybody reads differently, and there's just a lot going on here. I just don't even know. Well, no songs for anything, obviously. There's going to be a blessing, but who's it by?
Yeah, that could be mom, that could be dad, that could be officiant.
Yeah, guests make their way to ceremony, family lined up, bridal party lined up. Well, how are we lining them up?
How are they walking
Do
in?
you have, you know, those things?
Yeah.
Like, a lot of this stuff is just,
It leads to more questions.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You want to be able to answer your question in the timeline before you can ask it. If that makes sense.
Exactly. Like, simple things like this says milkshake truck arrives. Like, we'd probably be a little bit more detailed in regards of, like, where is it going? You know, things like that. Pour champagne for toast. Toast. Who's doing the toast? I don't know.
How many toasts are there?
Yeah.
How long is it going to take?
Open for
Is it during
speeches.
dinner? Open
Dance floor. Like, just very generic. Like you said, not customized to the client's needs. You know,
yeah, just
exit.
from looking at
What are we
it from
doing for the
afar,
exit?
it looks like it was just
It's
computer.
It's a template.
Yeah, it's a template. That's the word
AI
I'm
might
looking
have
for.
done it. I don't know. Like,
Not the AI timeline.
right? That would be amazing.
That would be crazy.
Can we invent that? No, I'm kidding. Like, this says hide bride.
Where? Why?
Hide
What
the
are we
bride.
hiding her from? Who's coming?
Oh my goodness,
hilarious.
this is too funny.
We kind of talked about it a second ago with that island wedding. Have you ever been significantly behind in a timeline? I mean, guys, we have hurricanes here. Like, there's a lot that happens that we have to problem solve with.
Yes, there is that wedding. The ceremony started 30 minutes late, and probably in 14 years, I've only had like 5 start late.
Yeah.
But at some point, you just have to say, okay, they're cool with it. I'm cool with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as much as you can try. That day was.
She's having flashbacks.
Oh, you know what? I had one that was 2 hours late.
What?
2 hours late.
What happened?
So I had this one wedding. It was probably about 10 years ago, and I still keep in touch with the clients. Shout out to Sierra and Tyrone. They have like 5 kids now. It's
Aww.
crazy. Anyways, long story short, like, this was a long time ago. And so they got married at a church, and then they had a 45-minute drive to a reception. It was a long distance. And I mean, they just weren't getting ready. They weren't moving. I'm like, y'all, like, and I'm at that point, you know, I'm very early in the career. I'm like, we got to go.
You're like, come on, we're on time.
And I remember one of the grooms came to me. He was like, Sarah, listen, we run on BP time. I'm like, what is BP time? He's like, black people time. I'm like, oh my God.
You're like, okay, well, I run on the schedule.
Yeah.
You're 5 minutes late.
Yeah. So, oh my God, he had me cracking up
That's
all
hilarious.
day. Yeah.
That's so funny.
So it's still a joke when I still talk to them with Sierra and them. So it was funny.
That is funny.
But yeah, 2 hours. That was pretty strong.
After ceremony or before ceremony?
Oh, before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. So that put the reception like way behind.
Yeah.
How did we fix it? We didn't fix it. It
You
just
just let it go.
yeah. You can't really make up 2 hours of time.
Yeah. There's sometimes that I don't know if there's something really specific that's happening that you need to be on time for. Like, you're working with a venue that really, like, you've got to stay on time with their catering schedule or whatever it may be.
That is super, especially if it's a plated dinner.
Yes, a
Like,
plate
that
of
is
dinner.
huge.
If you're running late, you've got to talk to your photographer doing photos afterwards. Be like, hey, like, we can take them back out, but we've got to get them inside for this, and this.
And if you see something running way behind or way early, because I've had both.
Yeah.
You need to alert the caterer ASAP so that they know. Because I mean, they're thinking, okay, salads are going out at 7 p.m. and it's not going to go out to 8. That's going to mess up their whole
Even
schedule.
when it's stations, I still shoot them a text if they're not right near me and at ceremony time and they're running a little over.
Yeah.
Say your officiant has a lot to say or someone's prayer goes over, whatever it may be, we try to tell them because cocktail hour people are doing past appetizers. You don't want those to come out early or late. get
Right.
cold. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever. So I keep in touch with all of that.
I think I have a story that takes the cake.
Please tell me.
So talking about timelines.
Okay.
So we had a timeline for everything, and you have your timeline for the exit and everything. The wedding ended 2 hours early
Why is that?
because the groom and the father of the bride got into a fist fight. We had to call the police, and we went home. And that was the end of the wedding.
And that's when our contract changed. And if you feel unsafe, you get to go home.
Yeah. That was prior
crazy.
to that being in the contract. But yeah, it was out of town. So I remember, well, crap, we're done 2 hours early. We're just going to drive home now. We had a hotel and everything. But yeah, that was pretty
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
How long ago was that?
Probably 8 years ago, 9 years ago. Damn. Yeah, it ended early.
Not the fist fight, guys. Family matters.
That
That really comes into play. I remember my first wedding back, speaking of being like ceremony on time, running early or running late. My first wedding I did by myself back here at SMB. I said
was
the
it
bride
at?
down. It was at Waukesha.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, like literally very first. Sarah
Yeah.
was like, "Oh no, you'll work a few before you have your own." She was like, "Oh, here you go."
Here you go. You got this.
No, it was fine. But the bride was very type A, wanted to stay on the schedule, and like we were. And I guess there were some guests that were they were driving themselves, and whenever that happens, you always have some stragglers. So at that point, like she's supposed to be going down the aisle, and there's some people coming in, and I was like, I had her tucked away inside, and I radioed one of my girls. I was like, "Oh, just keep them to the side, like we're about to send bride down the aisle." Blah, blah. So she's kind of like zoned out. She goes down the aisle. She has her ceremony. Everything's perfect. She comes back and she was like, "Next time I like to be fashionably late." She's like, "Let all of my guests sit." I was like, "Next time?"
Yeah.
When's the next wedding? You gonna hire me again? But she was like mad because I had her right on time and she wanted to be fashionably late. So then for the rest of the night, she wanted to have her dance a little late. She wanted to have her it was a whole thing.
Went on them all.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like the guests, they've never seen this timeline, you know,
No.
unless there's something.
And
like,
that's when that was a lesson for me of like, well, it's really what she wants. It's not what I want. I mean,
yeah, but you don't want to
Yeah.
be so far behind,
Yeah.
you know, of like they're just dragging,
Yeah.
you know, for those things for sure. So just remember, obviously, if you're working with a wedding planner, maybe you're working with us, you know, the timeline is just a guidance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if ceremony's at 5:30 and it doesn't end till 6:05, you know, that's going to happen. We don't know exact numbers of the officiant. And I've had an officiant ceremony last like 7 minutes. I'm like, holy
was like, oh.
moly.
Yeah,
So then I'm like
same.
marking on my sheet. Okay, ceremony ended at 6:07. So like, because that's crucial for like catering and bar. 'Cause
Yeah.
they've only paid for a certain amount of hours. So if they're getting their first drink at 6:15,
That means bar's gonna close earlier.
yeah, exactly. So, so yeah, if you want to see one of our timelines, we're happy to email you one. So,
If you want to learn how to make one of our timelines, maybe Sarah will do a masterclass.
yeah,
someday.
that'd be fun.
That'd
We
be
could do
really
that.
fun. Yeah.
I like that idea.
Yeah. Follow us on Instagram. Follow our This Takes the Cake podcast Instagram because it's hilarious.
So good.
It's just a cute little meme page now at this point. Follow us on all socials. Of course, subscribe to the podcast on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. And we'll be back next week.
Bye. Have a good day.